Katarzyna Zowada was a Polish 20-year-old student who went missing on the 12th of November in 1998. She studied religion at the Jagiellonian University in Krakow, Poland. According to her friends, she was a nice, although somewhat sad and withdrawn person. She was a very secretive person as well, and only apparently had a couple of friends who did not know much about her either. While studying at the university, she changed her academic focus twice, shifting from psychology after one semester, briefly attending history, before finally settling on religious studies. She had suffered from depression after the death of her father in 1996, 2 years prior to her disappearance and subsequent murder. Symptoms of depression were related to the death of her father. According to the Polish media, Katarzyna blamed herself. Katarzyna was an only child and had a close relationship with her father. She had once taken her father on a trip up to the mountains. Unfortunately, her father slipped and suffered from a spinal injury, which resulted in an illness and subsequent death. Katarzyna apparently always blamed herself for the development of the events that day. She fell into depression and became even more withdrawn after the passing of her father. On the 12th of November 1998, Katarzyna was due to meet her mother at a psychiatric clinic in Nowa Huta, where she had been treated for her depression. However, Katarzyna never made that appointment. Later on that same day, Katarzyna's mother attempted to file a missing persons report at the local police station, but was told by the police that it was too early to file a missing persons report and was asked to wait a little bit. Katarzyna apparently stopped attending classes 3 weeks prior to her disappearance. The reason or where she was actually going during those 3 weeks were never discovered. Leading up to her disappearance, she would leave in the morning and return in the evening as if nothing had happened. Due to this, her mother was not able to notice that something was not right and that something was not according to her usual schedule. Now, the media reported that Katarzyna's depressive tendencies actually seemed to have subsided during those past weeks leading up to her disappearance, and it was noted that she apparently started a diet to lose weight around that same time. 56 days later, on the 6th of January in the year of 1990, the crew of a towboat floating on the Vistula River called the Elk, or Los in Polish, found a piece of evidence on the ship when their propeller got entangled in human skin. The next day, the crew notified the police of their findings. After examination, it was discovered to be human skin. DNA tests later indicated that this skin actually belonged to Katarzyna. Additionally, weirdly cut pieces of clothing were also fished out from this river. 8 days after, on the 14th of January, Katarzyna's right leg was also recovered from that river. Initially, it was assumed that the body had been destroyed by the propeller. However, when examining the body fragments found, it was found that the skin was removed from the torso on purpose and limbs and head were cut off. The skin was prepared in such a way to create a kind of a bodysuit that the murderer was probably wearing. Police believe that Katarzyna had been severely beaten, drugged, and tortured for weeks before her death. Her body was covered in stab wounds and lacerations. During the investigation, according to some specialists, the killer was inspired by the 1991 film The Silence of the Lambs and the character of Buffalo Bill, who murdered women and skinned their bodies. In 2012, experts from the 3D Expertise Laboratory in Wrocław Medical University created a model of injuries inflicted on the victim. They had concluded that the attacker had used a sharp tool to wound his victim 3 times in different body part areas, which caused the victim to bleed to death. In 2014, an FBI specialist created a profile of the killer, stating that the person had sadistic tendencies, hates women, but from the outside would be considered as a harmless freak. it would be the same person who killed and skinned Katarzyna. They used a sharp object and seemed skilled in that area, which indicated they would have done it professionally or as a hobbyist, like a furrier, a butcher, or a hunter, or even a surgeon for that matter. Lastly, in 2016, a Portuguese specialist in forensics and UN expert in the field of science of torture confirmed that Katarzyna was tortured before her death and that the perpetrator was probably trained in some sort of martial arts. To listen to the full discussion about Katarzyna's case, please find our YouTube channel called The Wednesday Night Mysteries on YouTube, or listen to this podcast on your favorite podcast applications. Thank you very much for your time and for listening.